When my mother and sister organized the big gathering for what was supposed to be my grandfather's 90th birthday, I thought it would be just another awkward family event. We had flown in the day before, and although I hadn't seen most of my relatives in years, I tried to convince myself that maybe this was a chance to reconnect. The yard was decorated with paper lanterns, rows of folding chairs scattered unevenly, kids running around with sticky paper plates, and soft music spilling from a portable speaker. It all looked harmless, even a little sweet in its clumsy way. For the first hour, everything seemed perfectly ordinary. I hovered near the snack table, nibbling at skewers of fruit, while my husband, Roger, stood beside me nursing a glass of wine. Mom was glowing, darting between relatives with teary eyes and napkin dabs of lipstick. Dad grumbled about the heat from his seat near the grill. Natalie, my sister, was busy playing hostess, while her husband's too loud laughter carried over the chatter. If anyone asked me, it was all exactly what you'd expect for a milestone birthday. Then they brought Grandpa out. He was in a wheelchair, dressed neatly in a sweater vest I half recognized from years ago. People clapped, cheered, raised their glasses. I froze. Something about the way he sat so still unsettled me. His eyes were open, but unfocused, his hands resting stiffly like stage props. When I waved, he didn't move. Mom leaned toward me, whispering that he didn't talk much these days, that it was hard for him. I nodded, forcing a smile, telling myself of course age had changed him. When Mom gave her toast, her voice trembled with practiced emotion. She called him the foundation of the family, the man who built everything we had. Round me, people sniffled, whispered beautiful, and clapped politely. But Roger wasn't clapping. He wasn't even pretending. He just stared, his expression fixed, eyes narrow, as though he was studying every detail in front of him. I nudged him quietly. "What is it?" He didn't respond. His eyes didn't leave the man in the chair. "Roger," I hissed again. That was when he leaned in, so calm it chilled me. "Go pack your things. We're leaving, right now. Pretend everything's fine." I almost laughed, thinking he was being dramatic, but he didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't look at me. He just repeated it, steady and cold. "Get your bag." 5 minutes later, we were in the car. He locked the doors, started the engine, and sat there gripping the steering wheel as though it might break under his hands. His knuckles were white. He turned to me and said the words that shattered the evening. "That's not your grandfather." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" He didn't raise his voice. "I don't forget faces. I don't forget details. The man they wheeled out isn't him." I wanted to argue, but my mind was already unraveling. The last time I had spoken to Grandpa was over a video call 3 years earlier. He looked older, but still sharp, joking about his garden and the squirrels that stole his tomatoes. After that, every attempt I made to reach him was deflected by Mom. He was resting. He was tired. He wasn't feeling up to it. Eventually, my calls weren't returned at all. I told myself it was normal, that I was exaggerating, that distance had made me sensitive. But sitting there in that locked car, I realized Roger might be right. "Then where is he?" I whispered. Roger didn't answer. My chest went cold. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my phone. Calling the police felt insane, but not calling felt worse. I dialed. They arrived faster than I expected. Two plainclothes officers approached the house as if they were dropping off a package. From the car, I watched as the celebration didn't explode, but slowly dimmed, like someone had lowered the brightness on reality. Guests still held glasses, still tried to smile, but their shoulders tightened, their eyes darted nervously. I saw them question my mother, her gestures growing sharper, her mouth moving fast with excuses. Dad stood apart, staring into the hedge. And then they spoke to the man in the wheelchair. He didn't say a word when they asked for identification. Mom hurried inside, returning with papers. The officers looked at them, nodded politely, and then pressed again. The man finally lifted his head, muttered something too quiet to hear, and nodded. The scene looked more like a play unraveling than a party. One of the officers walked back to us, his face unreadable. He asked us to stay close. When I pressed, "Is that him? Is that my grandfather?" he didn't answer. Only, "We'll be in touch." That night, my phone rang. Mom's voice cracked with fury. "How could you? How dare you call the police on your own family?" She was half crying, half screaming. "You left. You don't know what it's been like here. We did what we had to do. What did you do?" My own voice shook. "Where is he? Where's Grandpa?" "You don't get to ask that," she snapped, then hung up. The next morning, police knocked at my hotel room door. My stomach lurched. For a moment I thought maybe we'd gone too far, that Roger had misread something. But they weren't there to arrest us. They were there to tell me. My grandfather had been dead for 3 years, natural causes, quietly buried, no announcement, no funeral, no word to me. For 3 years I'd been sending cards, asking for calls, wondering if I'd done something wrong. The world tilted under me. And then the lawyer called. Not theirs. Grandpa's. Calm, professional, almost gentle. "Your grandfather left his entire estate to you. The house, the business assets, the trust, everything." I could barely process it. He explained that my mother and sister had known for years, that Grandpa had made his wishes clear. And then suddenly, everything made sense. The secrecy, the fake birthdays, the impersonation. They hadn't been protecting him. They had been protecting themselves. Keeping me in the dark so they could go on living in his house, using his money, pretending I didn't exist. When the courts got involved, the truth spilled out. The impersonator was my uncle. He confessed. The family was charged with fraud, withholding death, identity deception. They received probation, conditional, and fragile. My uncle too. No one went to prison. They just left the house in silence, boxes in hand, not meeting my eyes. Mom left a note on the counter. "You always were good at taking what you didn't earn." I burned it. That night, I sat in Grandpa's chair with a glass of wine, the house quiet around me, the scent of wood polish in the air. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a stranger. I felt home. The court dates came like a slow, grinding storm. Papers delivered by hand, hearings scheduled, rescheduled, postponed. The language of lawyers folded itself around me, until I felt like I was drowning in it. They called it failure to report a death, identity deception, unauthorized access to assets, cold words, for something that had shredded the core of my family. When I saw them in court for the first time, they didn't even look like my family anymore. Mom sat stiff, lips pressed into a razor-thin line, her eyes darting anywhere but toward me. Dad looked smaller, shrunken somehow, posture collapsed into himself, as if hiding could erase his rule. Natalie sat closest to Mom, her face tight with anger, but her hand trembled whenever she lifted her glass of water. They didn't speak, they didn't look at me. It was as if I had never existed, as if the best strategy was to pretend I was nothing. The judge's voice filled the room. Words like probation, conditions, supervision. They wouldn't face prison, not yet, but every move would now be watched. My uncle, the actor, the stand-in, spoke softly, admitting what he had done. Glasses, beard, sweater vests. Silence, playing a grotesque role in their theater of lies. His cooperation earned him the same punishment, probation. I didn't feel relief, just emptiness. The day they were ordered out of the house, I didn't watch. Roger did. He told me later. Boxes carried down the steps, Mom barking sharp instructions. Natalie keeping her eyes low, Dad moving like a ghost. No words, no apologies, no glances toward the windows where I might have been watching. Only silence, and when I walked into the kitchen, I found it, a note on the counter. Mom's handwriting. Sharp and jagged, you always were good at taking what you didn't earn. I stared at it for a long moment, then struck a match, watched it curl and blacken to ash in the sink. After they were gone, the house felt cavernous, every sound louder, every floorboard groaning under my steps. Sometimes I thought I could still hear them, faint laughter, Natalie's voice, Mom's sharp tone, but it was only echoes, burned into the walls. And then, I began to find things they had missed. In the attic, beneath boxes of old linens, I discovered a trunk. Inside were photo albums, journals, scraps of paper with half-finished notes, pictures of me and Grandpa, me holding a toy he had carved, him bending low, teaching me how to plane a board. In the margins of a notebook he had written, "She listens, she learns. She makes her own path, I trust her." I sat on the attic floor, dust covering my jeans, tears falling onto the pages. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about property. It was about being seen, remembered, chosen. For years I convinced myself I was imagining the difference, exaggerating the way Natalie was adored and I was dismissed. But here, in his own handwriting, was proof he had understood. Outside, the world didn't understand at all. The story spread online, gossip blogs, late-night shows, viral clips. Family throws fake birthday for dead grandfather. Strangers laughed, speculated, invented theories. Some said it was proof of greed. Others, a sad story of grief turned toxic. I became a character in a play I hadn't written. I stopped reading, but still, the words found me. Messages, calls, emails. Anonymous numbers accusing me of being a thief, saying I had abandoned my family, saying I didn't deserve a penny. The lawyer told me to keep everything. They'll try to scare you, but you hold the legal ground. Your grandfather's wishes were clear. Still, legal ground doesn't silence nights, doesn't stop the weight pressing down. Sometimes I walked the halls whispering just to hear sound. Sometimes I read Grandpa's letters aloud, imagining his voice behind them. And sometimes I whispered into the dark, "Why me? Why did you choose me, Grandpa?" The answer wasn't in the letters directly, but I felt it. He had seen me, truly seen me. Not the daughter who stayed, but the one who built her own path. He respected that. He wanted me to know I wasn't forgotten, even if the rest of them tried to erase me. One afternoon, sorting through another box of papers, I found an envelope hidden between bills. My name on it, his shaky script. Inside, a single page. "Victoria, if you are reading this, it means the truth has reached you. I feared they would try to keep it away, but I trusted you would see. This house, this life, it was never about money. It was about remembering who you are. You were always mine, my girl, my hope. Don't let them take that from you." The handwriting faint, shaky, but it carried his voice more clearly than anything else. I pressed the letter to my chest and cried. Because in the end, the inheritance was paperwork, the house, just wood and stone. What mattered was this. In his final days, when my family tried to erase me, he wrote me back in, with every letter, every note. He anchored me here. I haven't spoken to my mother since. Not Natalie. Not even Dad. They exist somewhere out there, carrying their bitterness like luggage. Maybe they still tell themselves their version of the story. Maybe they still believe they were right. It doesn't matter, because here, in this house, with his words around me, I no longer feel erased. I no longer wonder if I was dramatic, or too sensitive, or too needy. The truth is simple. They chose to shut me out, but he chose me back in. And when I sit in his chair at night, glass of wine in hand, the silence feels different now. Not empty, not hostile, just steady, like somewhere in the wood. In the cedar scent still clinging to the walls, he's here. And, for the first time in my life, I don't feel like a stranger. I feel home. The basement room became my refuge. I spent hours there, reading page after page of his journals. Each line peeled away another layer of the man I thought I knew, and revealed how deeply he had seen through the family I'd left behind. He wrote of my mother's obsession with appearances, my father's silence, Natalie's dependence, and in between those criticisms, he came back to me, again and again, as if he was writing into my future. When the time comes, she will need to know she wasn't forgotten, that I trusted her. Even when no one else did, it was like he had written me a map out of the shadows, but maps didn't. Silence. The noise outside. Reporters left notes under the door. Photographers parked down the street. Cameras clicked when I stepped outside. Neighbors whispered. At the store, people stared, pity mixed with curiosity. Everyone wanted a piece of the story, as if it belonged to them. Natalie called again, weeks later. Her voice brittle. Do you feel better now, sitting in his house, going through his things? Do you enjoy what you've stolen from us? I gripped the phone. I didn't steal anything. He gave it to me, and you knew it. You don't understand, she snapped. We held it together. We kept the family intact. You walked away. And now you act like a savior. I almost laughed. Bitter, broken. Grandpa didn't choose you. He chose me. And you knew it. Silence. Then her voice turned cold. You'll never belong here. Not to us. She hung up. I stared at the dead line, my breath heavy. Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't belong to them, but I belonged to him. That was enough. The investigation dragged on. Months of accounts, signatures, documents. The conclusion never changed. Natural causes, peaceful death, no foul play, just a quiet end. Twisted into a lie. Some nights, I sat in his chair, glass of wine trembling in my hand, and whispered, what would you say if you were here? Would you scold them? Would you laugh? Would you just sit beside me? The silence answered. Steady, patient. The house grew quieter. The voices of the past faded. Slowly, I began to hear something else, my own steps, my own breath. A rhythm that didn't need their approval. One evening, sorting through another box, I found an envelope hidden between old bills. My name, written in his shaky hand. Inside, a single page. Victoria. If you are reading this, the truth has reached you. I feared they would keep it away, but I trusted you would see. This house, this life, it was never about money. It was about remembering who you are. You were always mine, my girl, my hope. Don't let them take that from you. The handwriting faint, fragile, but his voice clearer than ever. I pressed the letter to my chest and wept. Because in the end, the inheritance was only paper. The house was wood, stone. What mattered was this: when my family tried to erase me, he wrote me back in, with every line, every journal, every word. He pulled me out of the shadows. I haven't spoken to my mother since, not Natalie, not even Dad. They walk the world, carrying their bitterness. Maybe they tell their version of the story. Maybe they believe it. It doesn't matter anymore. Because here, in this house, with his words surrounding me, I no longer feel erased. I no longer doubt or wonder if I was too sensitive, too dramatic. The truth is simple. They shut me out, but he chose me back in. And when I sit in his chair at night, glass of wine in hand, silence wrapping around me, it feels different now. Not empty, not hostile, just steady, like somewhere in the grain of the wood, in the cedar still clinging to the air. He's still here. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel like a stranger. I feel home. The days that followed felt endless. Calls from lawyers, officers, reporters. Every conversation bled into the next, until I couldn't tell morning from evening. Roger tried to steady me, but even his calm presence couldn't block the storm. At night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. For 3 years, I'd been sending cards, begging for calls, whispering into silence, and all that time, he was already gone. I thought of the last video call, his tired but sharp smile, the joke about squirrels stealing his tomatoes. That was the last real moment, and I didn't even know it. Since then, every excuse Mom had given me, he's sleeping, he's too tired, he's resting, all of it had been a lie. And I had believed it. The story spilled online like poison. Shaky footage of the birthday toast circled again and again. Family throws fake party for dead grandfather. People laughed, speculated, argued. Some said it was fraud, others grief, others madness. I didn't read the comments anymore, but still, their voices echoed. Liar, thief, narcissist. One night, scrolling without thinking, I saw my own face frozen in a thumbnail, caught mid-expression, eyes wide, mouth half open. Underneath, ungrateful granddaughter ruins family. My chest tightened. I threw the phone across the room. It clattered against the floor, screen cracked. Roger picked it up. But he didn't scold me. He just held it, sighed, and whispered, "Don't look anymore. Don't let them inside." But the truth was already inside. The house was heavy with it. Walking through the halls, I felt like I was walking through layers of ghosts. Theirs, mine, his. My old room, stripped bare. Not Ollie's, preserved like a shrine. His study, a battlefield between what he left and what they tried to erase. Every drawer I opened, every box I uncovered, gave me another piece of him. And another wound. Then, in the basement, the hidden door, the journals, I read until my eyes burned. Until my hands shook from holding pages too tightly. He had known. He had seen the way they treated me, how they dismissed me, how they silenced me. They will try to erase her, but she must know I trusted her. I clutched the words to my chest and sobbed into the empty room. The more I read, the less power their lies held. For years I told myself I was overreacting. That maybe I imagined the distance. Maybe I wanted to feel left out, but no, he had written it down. He had witnessed it too. One morning, in a box of unpaid bills, I found the letter, his last one to me. My name in his hand, shaky, but still mine. Victoria. If you are reading this, the truth has reached you. This was never about money. It was about you. You were always my girl, my hope. Don't let them erase you. I pressed the letter to my chest, rocking, whispering, "I won't, Grandpa. I won't." From that moment, the bitterness shifted. The house didn't feel like a crime scene anymore. It felt like a message left waiting for me. Every photo, every page, every corner whispered, "You belong here." Mom's voice still echoed in my head sometimes, sharp and furious. "You think you're better because you left. You humiliated us, not Ollie's too. You'll never belong here, not to us." But now I had his voice too. "She will outlast them. Don't let them take that from you." The contrast was clear. In the end, the courts gave them probation. The world moved on to another scandal. Strangers online forgot my name. But here, inside these walls, the truth stayed. I poured a glass of wine, lowered myself into his chair, breathed in the cedar that still clung to the wood. For the first time in years, the silence didn't suffocate me. It held me. And I whispered into it, "I'm home."